Hi, it's Rachel again. This is the 5th video journal for my International Public Relations class. This will become part of the personal reflection at the end of the course. I have just a few things to talk about today. I guess we'll start from what's in my head at the moment, which is over the last couple of weeks we've sort of talked about or touched on the difference between marketing and PR, and I obviously have always felt that there was a definite difference, being that I am a public relations major and have taken those specifically public relations or PR related classes, but in saying that, attending APM and the way that the course is structured, I obviously also take a lot of advertising classes and a lot of marketing classes or marketing related classes, and just the way that my course was structured, I took those classes predominantly prior to actually taking more predominantly PR courses. And I guess throughout those we always talked about PR, and it was always a tool of marketing or a tool of advertising, and I can see the clear difference. But I think in doing my assignment, my essay on Starbucks, and looking at it, being that it is a product and a brand, and the company itself, everything about it is about marketing a product, I kind of felt that it was harder to differentiate PR and marketing in that sense. I think whenever we're talking about causes like breast cancer or AIDS, I can clearly see where PR and marketing differ. There's a definite separation in some ways, but when we're talking about actual products, I found that it was harder, especially the way in which marketing is moving towards more looking at relationships, when they talk about relationship marketing and things like that, that the reasoning behind some of the actions that they do tend to have a PR base, but they're marketing actions because the marketing is sort of becoming, I guess, more caring in a way. It's taking on some of those characteristics that public relations have, the relationship building, the trust, the communicating with or at the level of the publics, to sort of create that middle point, that middle ground. And it almost seems like marketing is moving that way. So I did find it hard to sort of, especially even just looking at the information provided, even when I was looking at PR sources and things in PR journals, they still seem to be almost easy for a marketing person to turn around and say, well, that's exactly what we would do. So I guess that's just something that's in the back of my mind. I know that there's a definite clear difference, but I just found that there's definitely, I guess in this day and age, there definitely is sort of some melding, I guess some crossover. So that's one thing that I sort of wanted to talk about. In class we talked about looking at the moment of representation in the circuit of culture, and specifically postmodernism, which is a term that's sort of thrown around a lot, and I've definitely heard of before, but I've never really necessarily looked at the specific meaning of it, or what it's all about, or the difference between sort of postmodernism and modernism, or those more scientific or classic views or ways of lives or paradigms, if you will. So we definitely, that was sort of the major topic that we were talking about, and the idea of hyperreality came up, and it's sort of my sort of understanding of it was a take on reality. So it's a version of the truth, but isn't necessarily real in the truest sense of the word. And I think that today hyperreality is highly prevalent. I guess it's a big part of life, or it's a big part of the way that, I guess, because consumerism, and we're constantly being marketed to, and we're constantly bombarded with images on the internet, on the TV, and a lot of it isn't necessarily real, but it becomes real in a way to us because of how important it is in our lives, and how we make decisions based on these concepts, these hyper realities that maybe aren't necessarily existent. I did like the idea of needing to constantly question everything. I think that especially now that's very important, but at the same time you almost, if you question everything, it could drive you a little crazy. When we were talking about the examples in class, I can't remember the exact example, but I could see myself thinking, if I kept on questioning everything, like in the movie Inception, sorry, like in the movie Inception, I think it would drive you a little bit crazy. So I think that there's definitely, in terms of practicing public relations, and then also in terms of life, there's definitely a need to constantly question and question things, and question meanings, and question authorities, and question the way that we look at things, question the way I personally view the world and view relationships and things like that. But at the same time, I think there's a point where you almost have to, there are points where you have to sort of accept things, just so you don't drive yourself a little batty. We talked about Wikipedia as a source, and I, being that sort of from day one academic skills class, never used Wikipedia as a source, it's kind of a little bit almost shocking, which is sad in a way, because I still use that. I still look at Wikipedia and I still sort of see it. If it's something non-academic, I'll go to Wikipedia and check it to, if I don't understand something, I'll check there. But then when it comes to my actual studies, it's something that's sort of totally taboo. It's steer clear of Wikipedia. But I like the idea that it almost brings out a deeper truth in a way, because so many people can add to it and change it, and it can be updated, and you get, I guess, in some ways different people's perspectives, which in the end, that argument, that discourse is what makes meaning, as we've sort of learnt through the theory of this class. So that was really interesting, and I actually used Wikipedia very briefly, but as a source in my essay, so it was kind of like a, woo, this is different, little experience for me. Other than that, we have started our group, or we've been put into a group and looked at our task, which is based around tiger conservation. In our sort of little discussions, we're potentially going to look at the assignment in terms of Bangladesh, because one of the group members, she had seen a documentary on the tiger fur trade, and how it started in Bangladesh in this documentary anyway. So that's sort of where we're going from, and from our discussions I'm happy where we're at. It's interesting looking at working in groups. I think you almost, for me anyway, you almost go into it with some sort of preconceived notions of how the whole experience is going to go. I know it's not necessarily the greatest feeling, or the greatest perception, but I've had some negative experiences in group work, and that has kind of clouded the way I look at group work, which is sad, because there have been a few times where our groups have been really useful, and I can see that in theory how groups can be helpful, but it just, in my experience at least at uni, they haven't. In the end you end up doing all the work yourself, and it's a negative experience. People who you would be friends with and can work with fine, as long as you're not actually forced to work with them because you're not at the same level or don't have the same goals or the same ideals or the same objectives of what you want to get out of the course, and you end up not being friends with them because you were forced into this situation where if you weren't that, you would have gone along with them fine. So I thought it was really good that we sort of had a discussion about what we wanted to get out of the assignment, what we wanted to get out of the group, and so I'm hoping that makes it a little bit more of a positive experience, but we'll see. we have our first tasks, which is sort of to research, start research on Bangladesh and specific areas that we thought we might focus on in our assignment. But I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it will go well, and I'm trying to sort of look at it with a positive perspective. I'm trying to be, what's the word, optimistic. I'm going to be optimistic about it, because I'm hoping that if we do all work together and we do put into practice things we talked about on our Saturday class, then hopefully everything will go fine. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this video journal. I'm still not quite 100% sure what I should be talking about in these, but hopefully I'm on the right track, and then at the end I may do one specific video journal that will sort of have an overall reflection of what I feel I've learned in the different aspects of what I've taken away from the course, but we'll see. So for now, bye!